Hello everyone and welcome to my ABC General Hospital Spoilers channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. General Hospital GH teasers indicate that Drew Kane's Cameron Matt romantic getaway plans may fail. Will Drew ultimately remember that Willow Kane Katelyn McMullen pulled the trigger, sparking a dramatic showdown? Now that the show has confirmed Willow as Drew's shooter, the countdown to Drew's memory flood begins. Drew will eventually have whole recall and understand his loving wife committed the crime. Of course, GH writers will want to wait till the timing is ideal. It's better right now if Drew feels Willow is innocent, which he appears to do based on his passionate defense of her in court. Willow was caught back by the judge. Bribery evidence given in court by ADA Justine Turner Nos9 contractor. Drew on the other hand blamed Michael Corinthos' Rory Gibson for framing him, which isn't surprising given that Sonny Corinthos' Maurice Bernard had Brick Stephen A. Smith plant the evidence instead. Jen Sidwell Carlo Roa bribed Judge Heron Tessa Abarino. So we'll see if Willow receives any updates on that at some time. Regardless, it is better for the tale if Willow supports Drew, or at least pretends to. Drew's belief that his marriage is solid and joyful makes logical given the impending tragic shock. The February sweeps appear to be an ideal opportunity for Drew to finally have 100% recall. That may be when Drew recalls anything significant, such as hearing Willow's ringtone for W.Y. Corinthos, Byron Weaver, at the house that night. Drew did not respond to hearing that ringtone when W.Y. called Willow on January 8, but that doesn't imply he won't do so later. However, there could be another memory trigger that opens the floodgates for Drew and finally reveals Willow as the true shooter. Willow may have been totally acquitted by that point. Drew might even organize a romantic getaway to celebrate, possibly around Valentine's Day, which will be here before you know it. It's easy to see a heated argument derailing Drew's plans for a hot weekend getaway or something similar. Regardless, General Hospital rumors indicate that Drew will eventually learn some stunning information about Willow and what she has been hiding. Drew Kane had long wished to whisk his wife Willow away for a romantic holiday in the sparkling yet stressful atmosphere of Port Charles. A chance to escape the never-ending turmoil that seemed to follow their every move. After months of court battles, custody disputes, and the lingering shadow of the night he was shot twice in the back, Drew hoped that a remote getaway would revive the passion that had once attracted them together. He reserved a magnificent cabin in the mountains, away from the prying eyes of family and enemies, envisioning romantic dinners, long walks in the cold air, and nights where they might finally reconnect without the burden of past betrayals. Willow, the faithful wife on the surface, nodded with a sweet smile, but her eyes carried a flare of something unspoken, a storm seething under her calm exterior. Drew felt a burst of optimism when they arrived at the chalet with the snow-capped peaks acting as a protective barrier. He unloaded the champagne, put the beautiful flowers he had ordered ahead of time, and took Willow into his arms as the door closed behind them. "This is our time," he said softly, caressing her neck as the fire blazed in the hearth. "No more trials, no more Michael lurking in the shadows. No more questions about that night. Just us." Willow nodded, gently tracing his back with her hands. But her touch felt distant and mechanical. She had persuaded everyone, including Drew, that she was innocent of the shooting and that Michael had framed her in a fit of wrath after losing her. Only the audience had seen the flashbacks throughout her testimony, which showed her gloved hands extracting the revolver from her glove box, her decisive stride into his home on that wet night months ago, and the cold resolve with which she fired twice into his back. She had done it for her children, she told herself, to protect them from a guy who had isolated her, manipulated custody orders, and turned her life into his own personal cage. However, now that she was married to him and playing the role of loving wife, those memories nodded at her in quiet moments. The first evening went off without a hitch. They ate delicious meals supplied by Drew, laughed over old recollections from Greenland when he claimed to have saved her life, and made love by the fire with a passion that startled him. Drew felt lively and unburdened. Convinced that Willow's evidence had changed the tide in her favor. The jury would consider Michael's motivation, his assault on Drew, and his presence near the incident. Willow would be acquitted. Their family would reunite with Scout and the children, and Michael would finally face the consequences of his obsessions. Drew whispered plans for the future while they lay tangled in sheets, including growing his political power, building a larger home, and possibly having more children. Willow listened, her head on his chest, yet internal anguish raged. She had suppressed the truth so profoundly that she occasionally believed her own lies. Was she actually out of her mind that night, as some whispered, or was it a resurfacing of her cult background with dawn of day? Or was it a deliberate act of desperation, which she now regretted as she lay next the man she had attempted to kill? The escape began to unravel the following morning. Drew awoke early, ready to surprise Willow with breakfast in bed. He strolled out onto the porch for some fresh air, phone in hand, browsing through texts from Port Charles. There were updates from the trial, including Tracy Cordine confronting Alexis Davis and demanding explanations regarding shifting blame. But one message captured his attention. A voicemail from Scout, his daughter with Sam before her sad death, who is now living under his strict supervision. Scout's voice, youthful and yearning, inquired about Mommy Willow and when she would see her brothers again. Drew grinned at first, but as he played it again, something happened. Scout mentioned phoning Willow the other day, and a tiny tune reverberated in his mind. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. It was the same sound Trina Robinson and Kai Taylor had heard that fateful night while hiding in his house. The ringtone that had alerted them to Willow's presence. Drew froze on the porch, the chilly wind piercing into him. Fragments raced across his mind, the pain in his back dropping to the floor and a faint phone ringing as the dark figure stood above him. Not Michael's heavy footsteps, but gentle ones. Not really a man's silhouette, but Willow's, his pulse hammered as more details came back to him. The disagreement about rejoining earlier that day, her concern that the judge's death might jeopardize custody, her driving away in the rain. He had rejected it all, blinded by his possessiveness, his desire to keep her away from Michael. But now the ringtone has sparked it all. Willow had been there. Willow pulled the trigger twice. He staggered back inside, cheeks pale, as Willow emerged from the bedroom in a robe, hair unkempt, and smiled sleepily. "Good morning, handsome. What's for breakfast?" Drew looked at her, the woman he had married in a twisted attempt to keep her forever. The mother of his stepchildren and the nurse who symbolized kindness to the world. Rage and betrayal battled within him. "You," he muttered hoarsely as his voice broke. "It was you." Willow's smile faded. "What are you talking about?" Drew asked, still holding the phone and loudly replaying Scout's voicemail. The tune permeated the room. Innocent and infantile, but damning. Willow's eyes widened in realization, and her resolve cracked for the first time since the stand. Flashbacks assailed her immediately, no longer suppressed. The gloves, the gun from the Cordine safe. She had access to the rain-soaked drive to his house, spurred by rage over his bribing of the judge, his isolation techniques, and his threats to permanently remove her children. She had intended to confront him, possibly intimidate him, but in that moment of breakdown, she shot to safeguard her family to end control. However, her survival instinct kicked in and she left, discarded evidence and played the victim wonderfully. Drew, who had lost her memory due to trauma, believed she was innocent and even testified to it, seething against Michael instead. When confronted, Willow backed away. "Drew, please let me explain." But he was agitated just like in court when he pounded the stand. "You shot me, my own wife. I almost died because of you." He seized her arms and shook her, furious tears flowing down his cheeks. The romantic lodge became prison-like with snow falling heavily outside, enclosing them. Willow sobbed, confessing her despair, concern for her children, and how Drew's arrogance and deception had driven her over the edge. She had not intended to murder him. She maintained only to stop him. But the second shot, as he was bleeding, that was insurance. Drew released her, dropping into a chair, his thoughts reeling. Betrayal cuts deeper than gunshots. He had alienated the Cordiness, blackmailed Sonny, and abused Michael in order to acquire her. And she had tried to kill him. Despite how twisted their link was, he still craved her. "Why didn't you just leave?" he insisted. Willow, tears streaming down her cheek, said, "You wouldn't let me. You took everything, my kids, my freedom. I had no choice." The fight became heated with voices reverberating in the secluded space. Drew threatened to turn her in and assure her death in prison regardless of whether she was acquitted. Double jeopardy be damned if fresh evidence emerged. Willow, on the other hand, used her own leverage to resist his bribes, erratic behavior on the stand, and blackmail plots. They were doomed to perish together. As night fell again, the escape was irreversibly destroyed. Drew drank heavily, pacing and calculating revenge. Maybe not prison, but control. He would keep her hidden, force her to stay, and make her gravel, just as he had done with others. Willow, cornered, considered escaping, confessing, or hitting again. Back in Port Charles, Trina and Kai pondered, exposing the ringtone proof. Tracy pressured Alexis for answers, and Michael sensed something was wrong with Willow's unexpected trip. The fallout spread. Days blurred in the cabin. Attempts to reconcile failed. Intimacy felt poison and talks were riddled with accusations. Drew's recollections became solid, plaguing him with each glimpse at Willow. He remembered her standing over him, smoking a revolver and wearing a look of regret and determination, but he couldn't let go. Obsession turned into dark possession. Willow, plagued by her actions, slid downward, questioning her sanity and morals. Had she initially blacked out and only remembered fragments on the stand? The actor who played her described it as crazy but fun, but Willow found it to be torment. Tension erupted on a rainy night, matching the shooting. Drew, drunk and enraged, accused her of faking love all along. Willow, pushed to the brink, admitted some of it. The affair with him began genuine, but turned into entrapment. "You changed," she exclaimed. "Became this monster." Drew lunged, not to harm, but to claim, and Willow defended herself by grabbing a nearby fireplace poker. No blows were landed, but the menace remained. They sank, tired, realizing their romance was a charade over an abyss. By the end of the week, they had returned to Port Charles individually. Their escape a calamity engraved in quiet. Drew plotted quietly, using his congressional influence to keep an eye on her. While Willow kept fragments to herself, fearful Trina and Kai would find out. Michael noted her distancing. Carly warned Jason about Drew's volatility, and the town buzzed with the trial's aftermath. Drew hadn't fully remembered at first, but the trip pushed him to the ringtone, the silhouette, the motive he'd overlooked. Drew ultimately chose a golden cage for Willow rather than prison. He would keep her secret safe for the time being in order to keep her confined. But secrets in Port Charles never remained hidden. Trina and Kai's decision loomed. Michael's suspicions deepened and Willow's guilt persisted. The romantic trip intended to heal had instead revealed the truth. Willow fired the trigger and Drew finally recalled. Their marriage, based on lies and violence, was on the verge of collapse, guaranteeing even more chaos for everyone involved. The situation grew as whispers spread. Na took a stand against Drew. Brennan made demands and Alexis dealt with defending a guilty client. Brooklyn was furious that Chase put his marriage at risk to save Willow. But in the center, Drew and Willow circled each other wearily. The failed getaway serving as a trigger. He remembered every moment now. The pain, the betrayal, the love transformed into hatred. She lived with the consequences of her actions, wondering if freedom was worth another chance. Poor Charles held its breath, awaiting the next blast. The botched getaway had appended everything, exposing cracks that would reverberate for years. Drew's fury simmered. Willow's regret fought for survival. And the truth once known could never be forgotten. In their world of secrets and second chances, this one might be fatal for their relationship, their families, or worse. The private plane hummed softly as it flew into the sky. Whisking Drew Kane away from Port Charles and everything he'd vowed he needed a vacation from. The water gleamed below, an unending blue promise of tranquility, privacy, and passion. That was the intention at least, a romantic reset, a clean slate, somewhere warm where memories would not torment him. Willow sat silently across from him, her hands folded in her lap and gazed out the window. She smiled as she felt Drew looking at her, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Drew told himself he was nervous. Anyone would feel uncomfortable leaving town this way with no phones buzzing and no responsibilities banging on the door, just the two of them selecting each other without hindrance. "Are you okay?" Drew inquired kindly. Willow nodded too hastily. "Yeah, I'm just taking it all in." The truth hung hard in her chest. This journey was not supposed to feel like this. It was intended to be romantic and soothing. Instead, it felt like she was wandering through dense, blinding fog, full of objects she couldn't quite see. She agreed to this trip since saying no seemed unthinkable. Drew had been so optimistic, so confident that distance could mend what Port Charles had broken. She didn't know how to explain to him that the distance was what terrified her. The resort was magnificent. White stone homes nestled among lush foliage, waves pounding softly beneath like a pulse. Staff greeted them with champagne and friendly grins, unaware of the tension seething beneath the surface. Drew grasped Willow's hand as they strolled toward their villa, brushing his thumb against her knuckles to settle himself in her presence. "This is perfect," he said. "There's no drama, no secrets." The word resonated in Willow's head like a bullet. That night, they ate dinner on a secluded balcony, candles flickering as the sun set behind the horizon. Drew discussed the future, possibilities, travel, and rebuilding something substantial. Willow listened, nodded, and smiled as usual, but each syllable twisted her heart tighter. She could feel the truth clawing its way up, screaming to be free. Later, Drew kissed her tenderly and familiarly. "Safe?" "Too safe." Willow backed away just enough for him to notice. "Hey," he muttered. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she said automatically. Then she stopped herself. She grew tired of lying. Drew accepted the answer. "I'm just overwhelmed." He always did. Sleep did not come easily. Drew lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the sound of the water echoing through his mind. And then it happened. The change, the crack. He felt a harsh, unforgiving pressure behind his eyes. The memory struck him like a freight train. A darkened room. People raised their voices. Fear cuts through the air. His own heartbeat pounded in his ears. Next comes Willow. Not crying, not shaking, focused. Her hands gripped the gun. The flash, the sound, the recoil. Drew bolted upright in bed, gasping for oxygen. Sweat saturated his skin as the vision was shown again and over, becoming clearer each time. Willow pulls the trigger. Willow stood there while everything changed. "No," he muttered. That can't be right." But his merciless and precise mind filled in the gaps, the bits he had buried. He overlooked the discrepancies. When that night rolled around, she always reacted defensively. She clung to him afterward, not just for comfort, but also for protection. He slowly turned, glancing at Willow, who slept peacefully next to him. The woman he brought here to escape the past was the same person his subconscious had been keeping hidden from him. The morning brought a forced sense of normalcy. Drew smiled. He laughed. He recommended going for a swim or a hike to avoid confronting the truth which was pounding in his head. Willow sensed the difference right away. Drew became silent, observing her in a way that made her skin prickle. "You barely slept," she explained. "Jet lag," he said easily. "It's too easy." They spent the day together in the hot sun, but the heat did nothing to warm the chill between them. Drew flinched internally whenever Willow touched him, the memory screaming at him. Every smile she gave him seemed prepared. By sunset, he'd had enough. They stood on the balcony as the sky darkened and the ocean absorbed the last of the light. Drew grasped the railing with white knuckles. "You ever notice," he replied slowly, "how memories don't truly remain buried? They wait." Willow's breath caught. "What are you talking about?" Drew turned to face her, his gaze exploring her features as if he were seeing her for the first time. "I remembered." Willow's face immediately became pale. She did not ask what. She did not pretend not to comprehend. You recalled what? She asked anyway, barely above a whisper. That night, Drew said, the gun. The silence between them was dense and stifling. I remembered who pulled the trigger, he explained. It was you. Willow's knees nearly crumbled. She grasped the chair behind her, bracing herself as tears welled up in her eyes. Drew, did you ever plan to tell me? His voice was not loud. That somehow made things worse. I was scared. Willow sobbed. You had already dealt with so much. I didn't want to ruin your memories or trauma. So, you allowed me to adore you. Drew shot back. You allowed me to create a future with you based on a lie. It was not like that, she wept. I did not intend for it to happen. Everything was spiraling out of control, and I panicked. I assumed someone would be wounded. Someone was hurt, Drew replied bitterly. Me? Over and over again, the waves smashed furiously beneath them, mirroring the fury raging between them. Willow approached him desperate. Please, I love you. That was never a lie, Drew said, backing away. I don't even know who you are right now. The romantic getaway was officially over. Drew stayed up in the villa that night. He wandered the beach alone, memories resurfacing, each more vivid than the previous. Willow's voice from the night, her expression afterwards, the manner she presented herself as his savior while concealing the truth. By dawn, he'd made a decision. When Willow awoke, Drew had already left. A brief yet devastating note sat on the table. I need some room. I'm heading back to Port Charles. Do not follow me. Back in Port Charles, the consequences were immediate. Drew confided in Curtis first because he needed someone grounded and honest. Curtis listened intently, his jaw tightening with each detail. She let you build a life with her knowing what she did. Curtis explained. That's not a small thing. Willow, meantime, returned alone, bracing herself for the inevitable judgment. She repeatedly tried to contact Drew, but he would not respond. The man who had once sworn to protect her at all costs, had fled behind the walls she had helped him construct. Their story, once portrayed as a romance born of survival, now appeared perilously close to a tragedy based on deception. The issue hovering over Port Charles was not whether Drew would forgive Willow. It was whether loving her was the biggest mistake he'd ever